Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, where we tackle the widest, most baffling and often hilarious moments in politics and public discourse. You know, those moments that make you laugh, cry and question everything you thought you understood about the world. Well, today we have got a dozen for you. We are diving into a viral political mix-up that's equal parts funny and honestly a little concerning. The time when a whole bunch of Americans rallied to vote against Obamacare, completely unaware it's literally the same thing as the Affordable Care Act or ACA. Yes, you heard that right. The same people who hated Obamacare also supported the ACA. The sheer irony of it all had the internet in stitches, and honestly, we still haven't recovered. But how does something like this even happen? Why do so many people misunderstand what these terms mean? And most importantly, what does this say about political messaging and voter education in America? Well, stick around because we are breaking it all down today, from the origins of the confusion to the internet's epic reactions. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one.
Apparently, a lot of them are figuring out that Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act are the same thing, and they actually voted against their own self-interest. If you voted for them, you took away my health care. Not only did you take away my health care, you took away my ability to get insurance at all because I have pre-existing conditions. And that's just one of the minuscule ways you've affected people in this country.
Many people refer to Obamacare as insurance, but it is important to understand that the Affordable Care Act, ACA, or Obamacare is not actually an insurance policy. Rather, it's just a federal law that regulates the health insurance industry and makes health insurance more affordable and accessible for Americans. So under the ACA, health insurance companies are required to offer essential health benefits such as coverage for preventive care, prescription drugs, and maternity care. The law also prohibits insurance companies from denying coverage to individuals with pre-existing conditions. In addition, the ACA established health insurance marketplaces where individuals and small businesses can purchase health insurance plans at affordable rates. So while the ACA is not an insurance policy itself, it has a significant impact on the insurance industry and has helped to make health insurance more accessible and affordable for millions of Americans.
Serious question for the Republicans who didn't know that the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare were the same thing. What was the thought process there? Did you think that you had the Affordable Care Act because it was for Republicans and Obamacare was for the Democrats? Did you think that Obama was still helping with Obamacare? Did you think Obama was running it? What did you think the main difference was between Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act? Did you just think Obamacare was the more liberal insurance and you just got the more non-liberal insurance? I'm not even trying to be mean. I'm genuinely so fascinated by this blunder. I could understand not getting tariffs, sure. I'm just, if we didn't think they were the same thing, what did we think they were? How did we think they were different? When you got your Affordable Care Act coverage, did you specifically say, no Obamacare for me, only Affordable Care Act? Did you think that Trump was going to take away the free Obamacare insurance for Democrats, but not the Affordable Care Act insurance for Republicans? I'm genuinely trying to understand. So please leave me a comment. And for what it's worth, I genuinely hope that everyone who needs free health insurance or low-cost health insurance ends up with it at the end of this.
Good evening, everybody. I'm coming on tonight to congratulate all the supporters of Donald Trump and Donald Trump himself for pulling off what appears to be an amazing victory. I obviously was a supporter of Ms. Harris, and she lost. And what's the most refreshing thing is that unlike what Donald Trump did 4 years ago, and what his supporters said they would do again if he did not win this election, which means not congratulate the other side, Ms. Harris congratulated Mr. Trump and clearly said that he won. And that's how democracy works. A couple things. One of the things Donald Trump said he's going to do is eliminate Obamacare. Do you know the states that benefit the most from Obamacare? The southern states, all of that voted for Donald Trump. I just think that's important. Let's see what happens.
Here's something Republicans don't want you to know about. It turns out that when my husband retires, we'll be paying less money for health insurance than we were paying under his employer's health insurance plan. You know why that is? Obamacare. A lot of folks don't retire early because they don't understand that Obamacare can possibly provide cheaper health insurance than what they're currently paying. And we know that in this country, health insurance is tied to your employment. What do I have to say? Thanks, Obama.
Health insurance sucks, but believe me when I tell you it used to be a lot worse. This tweet is on to something. Before the ACA/Obamacare, insurance companies used to be able to deny you coverage for pre-existing conditions, and there were a lot of pre-existing conditions. If you had diabetes or survived a heart attack in the past, you were uninsurable. Full stop, no insurance for you. HIV, no insurance. Beat breast cancer? Congrats. Good luck if it ever comes back, because we ain't paying. That was just life in America until basically 10 years ago. And if you had conditions like high cholesterol, asthma, or even hay fever, insurance companies would cover you, but they'd just jack up your premiums instead. And even if you were covered, insurers could just cancel your entire policy if you made the teeniest mistake on your application. And believe me, they would move heaven and earth to find any errors and deny you coverage. It's called rescission. And just like denying coverage based on pre-existing conditions, it's illegal now thanks to the ACA. But that doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. The far right wants nothing more than to kill the ACA and let the free market decide whether you live or die. Last time Trump was in office, he made repealing Obamacare one of his biggest goals, and he failed by just one vote. There's no reason he won't try again, especially as Republicans in Congress have become even more Maga, not less, in the 7 years since. More than 40 million people rely on ACA-related policies for their health care. We cannot let this happen.
This post has blown up on the Bird app because a lot of people don't realize that the Affordable Care Act is the reason that a lot of young people can stay on their parents' health insurance until they're 26 years old. And if you didn't know, as of March 23rd, the Affordable Care Act was passed 14 years ago in 2010. And as a health economist, I'm here to tell you why the Affordable Care Act is one of the most monumental pieces of healthcare legislation over the last 50 years. It did a lot. In fact, from 2010 to 2016, the number of uninsured people was cut in half. 20 to 24 million more Americans now have health insurance because of the Affordable Care Act. A lot of this increase in coverage had to do with something called Medicaid expansion. In 2014, the federal government offered to increase its contribution of federal match rates if states offered to cover people who made up to 130% of the poverty. As of December 2023, 41 states and the District of Columbia have expanded Medicaid coverage. There have been upwards of 600 economic and public health studies looking at the impacts of those states that expanded Medicaid versus those that didn't. Have come to a consensus that Medicaid expansion has improved health insurance coverage, increased the number of visits, improved health outcomes, and improved the affordability of healthcare services across the board. It's been instrumentally effective. The Affordable Care Act also prevented insurers from denying coverage with those with pre-existing conditions. Essentially, why health insurance companies did this is because people with pre-existing conditions are more expensive to cover because they need additional healthcare services. The definition of a pre-existing condition is pretty large. Things like anxiety and depression were considered pre-existing conditions. Health insurance providers could deny you coverage because of those diagnoses. The Affordable Care Act also mandated that all insurance companies must provide essential health benefits as well as preventative care and screenings for women. This has changed because of certain Supreme Court cases, but in general, things like birth control and pap smears, those are all covered by the Affordable Care Act. Insurance must cover these essential health benefits in some way. Before the Affordable Care Act, they were not mandated to do so. The bill also established the Affordable Care Act exchanges, which provided affordable self-coverage. The provisions of this bill have also been changed because of Supreme Court cases, which I'm happy to talk about. And also, this bill isn't perfect. There's actually a lot of things this bill was supposed to do, but because of senators like Joe Lieberman, it did not happen. All things considered, the Affordable Care Act has been an instrumental first step in greatly expanding healthcare coverage. If you have any questions, let me know.
If Obamacare goes away, I do think we'll see a renaissance of sketchy, out-of-pocket doctors who'll give you whatever you want, so upside?
Well, I guess Rocco will never be able to float. Oh, well, too bad. Bye, Rocco.
This isn't an advent calendar. This is a countdown calendar with surprises. I don't like wreaths. I like circular foliage arrangements. This is not a snow globe. This is an enclosed mini scene shaker with flurries. This is not a decorated evergreen holiday centerpiece. This is a Christmas tree.
Alright, let's unpack what might be one of the most ionic and telling political moments in recent history, the confusion between Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act. To start, let's give a bit of historical context for anyone unfamiliar with how this mix-up came about. When the ACA was introduced, it was a landmark piece of legislation aimed at reforming healthcare in America. It provided coverage for millions of uninsured Americans, expanded medical and insured protections for people with pre-existing conditions. On paper, it was a pretty significant step forward in healthcare reform. But here is where the politics come in. From the start, opponents of the ACA, particularly on the right, began branding it as Obamacare. Now, attaching a president's name to legislation isn't new, but in this case, it became a weaponized term. By calling it Obamacare, critics tried to make it less about the actual policy and more about tying it to President Obama, a figure who at the time was polarizing for many Americans. The strategy was clear: make it about him, and you swore public opinion against it. And it worked, sort of. Surveys show that many Americans who claim to hate Obamacare actually voted the ACA when they were asked about specific provisions. Things like letting young adults stay on their parents' insurance until 26, loved it. Protection for pre-existing conditions, absolutely necessary. Medical expansion, which support in many states, even among conservative voters. But as soon as you slap the word Obamacare on it, people's opinions flipped. This disconnect is both hilarious and deeply concerning because it reveals just how much political branding, and let's call it what it is, propaganda, can distort public understanding. So why did this happen? Well, for starters, we have to talk about media. Conservative media outlets at the time played a massive role in demonizing the term Obamacare. The narrative wasn't about the law actually did, but about how it symbolized big government outreach and socialism, buzzwords that tend to get a strong emotional reaction in American politics. But here's the thing, most of the people who supported ACA provisions were benefiting from them directly. I remember reading stories about people who were like, I'm so glad we got rid of that terrible Obamacare, but thank God for the ACA because it helped me afford my medications. It's both funny and heartbreaking because it highlights a lack of basic voter education. And speaking of education, there's another key point. Civic education in the US has been on the decline for decades. When people don't have a solid understanding of how policy are made or even voice in those policies, it's easy for them to be manipulated. That is not to say people are stupid, far from it. But when the political and media landscape is designed to confuse rather than clarify, it creates a perfect storm for these kinds of misunderstandings. Now let's talk about the internet's reaction because honestly it was one of the best parts of this whole saga. When these contradictions started going viral, social media exploded with memes, tweets and TikTok poking fun at the situation. I remember seeing one tweet that said, "So you all hate Obamacare but love the ACA." That is like saying you hate fries but love potatoes, and honestly it's the perfect analog. The memes didn't just highlight the hormone of the situation, they also pointed out the absurdity of how branding can completely overshadow substance. People started sharing side-by-side comparison of what Obamacare and the ACA were, and surprised they were identical. The only difference was the name. But beyond the memes and jokes, there was a serious takeaway here. This whole situation is a cautionary tale about the power of political messaging. It shows that when you reduce complex policies to buzzwords, you strip away the opportunity for meaningful debate. Instead of talking about what the ACA was doing, like lowering the uninsured rate or making healthcare more accessible, the conversation became a rooted shouting match over a name. And honestly, it's not just about Obamacare or the ACA. This kind of branding war happens all the time in politics. Think about how the terms like Medicare for all or Green New Deal are received. People often have strong opinions before they even understand what this policy entails because the names themselves become battlegrounds. So what is the solution? Well, for starters, we need better voter education. People should be able to access clear, unbiased information about what policy actually do, and media outlets on all sides needs to do a better job of separating fact from spin. But it also falls on us as individuals. We need to approach politics with curiosity rather than knee-jerk reactions. Instead of immediately rejecting something because of how it's branded, ask yourself, what does this actually mean? What is in it? How does it affect me and my community? At the end of the day, the Obamacare versus ACA confusion is funny, but it's also a wake-up call. It's a reminder that in the age of political branding and soundbites, staying informed is a revolutionary art. So let's keep asking questions, digging deeper, and most importantly, not letting labels dictate our understanding of the world. What do you think? Does this story make you laugh, or does it make you worried about the state of political discourse? Let me know in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for watching, and let us continue this conversation in the comments below. Let us share our thoughts and perspective with one another. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on this story and more. I will see you in the next video.